Tonight's Modern Men is powered by the Hero Initiative. Are you interested in becoming a hero, or maybe even sparing me from Drew's countdowns in the near future? Go to theheroinitiative.org to see how you can be a hero to those comic creators in need. What's going on, guys? We're live this week. Finally,
we are live.
God, we're live. We are here for a big episode. We're going to be talking the whole entire show, covering the Infinity Gauntlet this week. I'm so excited to be here. And speaking of excited, before I get into our awesome panel tonight, let's roll into that chat real quick. We got Not Barrett 316. We got Markstat 369. In the chat. What is going on, Ricky, founder of the Discord server, which if you're interested in joining that Discord server, the link can be found down below in the comments. Thank you, ComicManAndy, for adding that. Second in the chat, second place in the chat, we've got Chris Barrett. How you doing, Chris Barrett? He's got a whole paragraph on cosmic kings and dreams and stuff like that, but we're happy to have you in the chat. We got Lost in Comics. What is going on, Lost in Comics?
They do some great content. Check those guys out over there, Lost in Comics.
We've got not the element spot we need, but the element spot we deserve.
It's the only one we've earned.
Yeah, it's the only one we earned. He's made his one appearance. We won't see him again because no one knows the login. But anyway, nice to see a Stream Elements robot. We got K Titus Konnichiwa, my friend from Japan. How you doing tonight? Happy to see you in the chat as well. I don't know, it's like 4 days into the future over there, I'm sure. So thank you for joining us. But
then he already knows what happens.
We got an exciting panel. Oh my, the combs are coming out. My goodness. Oh, we got the Mastodon. Speaking of beards, he's in the chat. But Andy, how's the beard?
You know what? I'll give you my secret. Everybody thinks there's 6 Infinity Gems, but there's a 7th, and it's the beard gem. And I possess it. It is the power behind my beard.
I think those are just Dorito crumbs. But anyway, Drew, how you doing?
Is that a scrunchie?
It's actually a giant hunk of copper.
Okay.
It's pretty lame, except for that's because dwarves mine copper, beards, dwarves, beards, it's a whole thing.
No, I'm sorry. Look, your beard is better than mine currently. But I feel like I'm coming up from behind quite well. We are coming in strong. I like the way things are over here. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but the last time I wore this Under Armour sweatshirt, I saw the 3 of you in person. I left this at the Airbnb in Baltimore after Comic-Con. And by God, yesterday, JB sent it to me in the mail because he also sent me an A-OK, this wonderful book, this Pizza Hut X-Men.
Very nice.
And this is in really good shape, but like, this is like one of my favorite books as a kid. And he sent me this giant, medium-sized priority box. I'm like, what the hell is this? Because he asked for my address like last week. And he hadn't sent me anything in a while, and I open it up, and this is sitting on the top, and underneath of it, I'm like, what the hell is in this box? It's my sweatshirt. Thanks, JB. Appreciate it, man. It's like hot as balls here right now, but I'm repping this sweatshirt.
Under Armour products aren't cheap, so shout out to JB. I've talked to JB for a while, so he read Civil War. And we got a special guest with us. Don't adjust your screens. It's not Tuesday yet, but straight from Golden, guys. When I thought Infinity Gauntlet and Thanos, there's one guy I had to call. JD, man, what's going on?
Yes. One of my favorite arc I ever read that I was more excited about than Secret War because I was older, and it's cost 5 times as much. I'll get into that too.
Nice. And we got a super chat going on the chat. You know what? I finally get to use this.
We're best friends. Let's do karate in the garage.
Yeah. It's been way too long since I've hit that button. Big shout out, man, to Just a Rican. And his comics for the $2 super chat.
Thank you, Rod.
Puerto Rican, man. And before we dive into the Infinity Gauntlet next week, we got an awesome read coming up. TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Volume 1 from the IDW run. Kevin Eastman, Tom Waltz working on that one. And we don't really, it's just me, Andy, and Drew for that read next week. But I want to have an open invite, and I'll extend this open invite at the end of the show as well. But anybody watching now or watching on the rewind, if you want to be a part of an all TMNT episode next week, hit us up. I would love. I feel like having only 3 people talk about Turtles is not near enough, so I want at least a 4th person next week.
Maybe we can get 90 a babysitter.
Oh, yeah, that would be sweet to get 90. He's the one who hooked me up on that read to begin with. So if you guys want to talk all Turtles next week, the whole episode is going to be dedicated to TMNT. So we're going to review Volume 1 of the IDW run, and then after that, we're going to talk everything Turtles, the cartoon series, the movies. Drew's going to try to tell me why 3's a good movie. I'm going to tell him no. I want to talk about fruit pies next week. Those pies, would you get a time machine to go get an Action Comics #1, or would you just get a deep freezer with those custard pies? Tough debate, I know. But we're going to be talking all things TMNT next week. And, of course, the action figures, too, because why not? So if anyone wants to be a part of that or just wants to hang out and talk TMNT for a few minutes and do a drive-by, hit us up on Instagram, here on YouTube, in the comments, what have you. And I'd love to get as many people on that as possible. All right. So the Infinity Gauntlet. I know it's been a wild ride over on the MCU side of things, which that's the main reason I ended up reading this last year. But I want to get JD's thoughts first because he was telling us some awesome stories before we went live. So JD, why Infinity Gauntlet?
All right. First, it all stems from the Silver Surfer for me. And I was reading Silver Surfer Volume 3, and issue number 34 came out and had Thanos on it. And I remember a little bit about him just from reading something in the Spider-Man Cosmic Cube and the helicopter. So then I researched him, and I want to know everything about him. This is where it started for me with Thanos, was right here. This book here, I was like, I want to know everything about him. And then it just continues. And eventually, I started reading this. And then all of a sudden, Marvel came out with the Thanos Quest. It was a $5 book. And you had to get book 1 and book 2. And this was book 1. Book 2 I have over there, but I'm not going to grab both of them. But you had to buy this book after one of the Silver Surfer. I think it's number 40 or something. After that, you have to get this. And then you have to get the second book. And then that starts. This book goes back to here. And then the Infinity Gauntlet starts right after this. This is the Gauntlet itself, the first appearance of it. And then he goes and gets all the stones. And excuse me, all the gems, we should say. And then at $2.50 a piece, that the Infinity Gauntlet story came out. And I remember waiting on the one of the issues was the last day of last full day of school before the summer, before finals, and it was a fucking Wednesday, and I went to the store and I couldn't get it, so I had to freaking go all the way back to the newsstand and buy a newsstand for one of the issues. I remember that. I was pissed. It was dirty, rotten newsstand copies. But I was a big fan of the Infinity Gauntlet. I have all my copies here. Kind of never wanted to slab these. These were never worth a dime. They were worth less than what the cover price was up until a couple of years ago. So,
yeah, like I was telling you, this is like when the movie came out, it was the first time I'm like, why haven't I read this? And I actually had to go like overpay for that first issue. I found a copy, but I got it just in time to get it signed by George Perez, which we'll get into the art here in a little bit because I know Drew has some thoughts on that. But Drew, you were telling us on a previous episode like some of these Thanos appearances and must reads. So what would you recommend if someone out there is just like watching this to get like a gauge for Infinity Gauntlet? And JD kind of just gave us a great summary on Silver Surfer. Are there any other appearances of Thanos that would help benefit this read even further?
I think that Thanos Quest is really all you need to get you caught up. The Silver Surfer stuff is great, and I very much enjoy that, and I very much enjoy that beautiful Ron Lim art in those issues. Yes, and in that as well. Thanos, in my mind, a lot of the best Thanos is told after this story. This probably is the most iconic Thanos story. It is kind of the first time he's put front and center in a big Marvel event. I think Thanos Quest is definitely a more introspective, self-contained kind of thing that doesn't really affect the rest of the universe. The outcome does, but the story itself doesn't. I think, but though, if you read this and you enjoy this character, there's a lot of different places you can go. The deep dive into his past through Captain Marvel. He started as a Captain Marvel villain. Well, I mean, he's kind of an Iron Man villain first, kind of an Avengers villain, but that all stems through Captain Marvel. His Marvel and Thanos were definitely nemesis. I don't know, whatever that word is. That's what they were. Yeah, exactly. And I think that also carried over into the Carol Danvers Captain Marvel as well. She's kind of got her own thing going on with him now in the modern books. But yeah, this is probably the main event if you're looking at Thanos. There's a lot of different things to jump into. The Jeff Lemire stuff we read was great. I liked the Donny Cates Thanos wins. I think we all had a good time with that. And I think that it's going to end up on a poll very soon because it's probably the last great Thanos read is Thanos Rising from Jason Aaron is like his origin story. Kind of his, the focus on him as a character himself, not so much as a foil for anyone else. I love how he's made him a deviant. Just so much great stuff there. But this is the main event, man. Infinity Gauntlet is where you should start, and it could also be where you finish. Everything else is kind of just gravy on the meatloaf.
Nice. So Andy, I know I've read this at least once before, to get prepped for when the movies came out and stuff, but this is your first time reading it, right?
It was. It's the first time I'd ever dipped into this.
And you said you couldn't put it down, right?
No, well, I couldn't, but I had to jumpstart that car a couple of times. So I went to go the digital route first for convenience. I had a busy week ahead of me, and it's easier to carry on my iPad, And when I downloaded it and I read the first couple of pages, I don't know if it's just the way, if the styles and the pencils, the inks, the things that they used in the 90s and further on back, but the book I didn't like reading the book digitally at all. I went out and I got a paper copy of the book. And it reads incredibly well in hand compared to digitally. I feel like this is what the art writers and the artists wanted me. This is how they wanted me to absorb this, because there's, like I've said, this digital has its time and place, but it didn't with this book. It didn't with this read. It just didn't look good on the screen for me at all. It felt very flat. It just didn't help the art out for some reason. And then when I got the book, I started reading it yesterday. I sat down and read the entire thing without stopping. And I think 2.5 hours.
Wow, right,
I took my time. I read it slow. And I forced myself to absorb it. Instead of trying to speed read and hurry and rush, I took the entire night and I took my time to absorb this correctly. And I'm glad I did. Because this lives up to what everybody says about it. It really does.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, my first time reading it, I guess it's been 2 years now, basically, when the Infinity War movie came out. I was just like, I kept hearing about it. I'm like, why haven't I just read this myself? So I've still read it on Marvel Unlimited. That's the way I read it this time as well. One day I may get like a hardcover or some nicer version because I really
just recently released the hardcover again.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing that they've been churning those hardcovers and trades out pretty much the whole time. But I do need to get like an upgraded copy myself. Besides my only issue 1 signed by George Perez is the only one I've got in the collection, and I need to improve upon that. But without further ado, we'll just go ahead and kind of go into our deep dive here of the Infinity Gauntlet. So it starts off issue 1. And I love the beginning of this, where basically you just see Thanos kind of in space, and then you see the big words God as he's staring off into the distance, with Mephisto kind of sitting there like inflating his ego quite a bit. So JD or Drew, one of you guys can chime in. What's going on with Mephisto here is my first question.
Man, leave it to the devil to just stoke the flames of pure evil. He's got to go to outer space to find some dude who's like, all right, I can be this guy's peon.
And he comes back in Silver Surfer as well, and teams up with Thanos in a particular issue. And you could just tell that you really can't tell what his motive is. It seems like he's genuinely trying to help Thanos complete this quest, and it's just, but it's Mephisto, so he's gonna stir shit up. He's gonna do something.
But having Mephisto be kind of a lackey, right? He's an underling to Thanos, definitely in this story. That's very telling immediately, as well as to Thanos's place. Mephisto's the guy who he's like he's the big bad normally, and in this case he's definitely second fiddle,
the Mad Titan.
And then on Earth and New York, of course, and it starts off. I'll just save all my movie comments for later, but I love the way this starts off with Doctor Strange and Wong just kind of hanging out, and the next thing you know, here comes Silver Surfer just barreling through their top window. So JD, what was going on with, you said Silver Surfer is kind of like the natural place to start if you want to read the whole thing. So what has Silver Surfer been through at this point?
Well, he spent a lot of times on a shitty planet looking for a job, and that's true. And that's where Thanos was. He was an ex-Herald of Galactus at this point. And he fights, there's a whole Thanos return 5-issue 34 through whatever just before Thanos Quest. And during that time, the Silver Surfer battles Thanos, but he thinks he's winning. Silver Surfer thinks he's winning, and he really isn't. And Thanos, and he's not. And for some reason, Norrinrad thinks he's winning this whole time, and he's just beat to shit. And Thanos just goes off and does what he does, and Silver Surfer is just the victim in the whole thing, and just sends himself with all his power left in him. Everything is taken from him, everything he's got, and goes straight away. And lands.
JD, can I ask you? Let me ask you real quick. I have read all the crossover stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't read for the Infinity Gauntlet. But I didn't read any of the Doctor Strange stuff leading up to it. Is Mephisto part of that and the Doctor Strange stuff leading up to? Because I know he shows up in Strange a lot.
Yeah, in Doctor Strange 31 of that era, that issue, that volume, in that issue, that's where the Silver Surfer and Doctor Strange just they go back, and that's where you find out why he landed at Doctor Strange. That is about the only major one you might want to read beforehand. The rest of it really doesn't play into it. The Mephisto part is kind of in more nightmarish land, not really that astral. Think of the astral projection. However, you'll see a lot of that, and we'll get into that too. So, yeah.
So the other reason I like Silver Surfer here is for kind of readers like me and Andy who missed out on the late 80s, early 90s Marvel boom here because, like I said, I hadn't read too much exactly from this part. You get kind of like that more or less exposition dump from Silver Surfer, kind of explaining very quickly who Thanos is, who Mistress Death is, which I'm kind of glad they went into that as well because I don't know too much about Death in Marvel, kind of like Death in DC/Vertigo, of course. and why he covets death. So, Andy, what did you think about how they presented Silver Surfer and how they kind of let off with that story?
It's hard to have a baseline for that, and I'll tell you why here for a minute. We were talking about it a little bit earlier before we went live, and it's price point. 91, this book hit, and JD, you hit the nail square on the head. This book landed at $250.
Yeah,
and when I was buying comic books at that time, I was paying a buck and a quarter off of an allowance. Nobody my age with an allowance was buying books at $250 for something like this. There was a lot of them they scared a lot of readers away with the price point. So I have completely diverted from your original question, and I'll go in to say I enjoyed it quite a bit because I did miss a lot of that Silver Surfer stuff. I did miss a lot of that major Marvel stuff out of the 90s. My only question for you guys is, as a first-time reader, and that's why I'm a first-time reader, was that price point in 91. I was a little confused with the trio in the car going over the cliff and why one of them turned into Pip. And the driver ended up being Adam Warlock. And the girl, did she turn into She-Hulk? Why did she turn green?
No,
I don't know the premise before, or I don't understand the trio before the change, before the car crash, and then they all died, and then they came back to life. And then
the hotel.
I don't really understand how that folds into this story here.
Well, they're known as the three that nobody cared about, but they do have names. I think I forget what their names were, but they had names. They're literally used as props to die. So Pip becomes one of them. That's there, and then you see the Cocoon, and
so that was literally 90s filler back then.
Yeah.
Oh, it's kill him because Adam Warlock's been dead since this book. Thanos, Adam Warlock, you didn't see them ever again after this book in 77. You never saw them. So from 77 up until Warlock actually shows up in Silver Surfer first, before like the Cocoon. This is the crossover part, the Silver Surfer crossover part right here. Goes into the Adam Warlock a little bit more. That's the one thing you probably should have seen. There's an issue of Silver Surfer with Warlock on it like this. I think it's
Chris Barrett says they're a McMuffin. They're not. They're a McGuffin. Not a McMuffin.
Not McMuffin, but we understand where you're at. But yeah, that was just
hey, just take a second to shout out the chat. Jeff Schultz in the chat. Good to see you, Jeff. This is One Love from Chicago. And
on the cover, I didn't see them.
Howler Mouse is in the chat as well. Says the messed up part is when you read Thanos explaining Silver Surfer in his book, why killing half the universe would be a good idea. He's so evil and convincing. It's crazy. I still think he's evil, and I still think he's a very convincing.
He's righteous in his opinion.
Let's kill half the universe. I'm down. We're only losing Andy and JD. It's not that bad.
How is when Thanos is going through the beginning part, which you're talking about here, with the God thing, you have to understand he's not. The whole background of Thanos is he's always wanted to be a god, and death wants nothing to do with him. Like, won't even talk to him. Period. And he's so hung up on this broad. I swear to God.
Yeah, it's basically Thanos is this emo kid who's like, you know what? That girl doesn't like me, but you know why she will like me? When I have this sweet rainbow-colored bedazzled glove, and I'm totally fabulous. That's Thanos.
I totally claim that Thanos is stuck in the friend zone with death, and it's so
he got friend zoned by death.
So
no, she don't want anything to do. He can't die. We've come to find at this point, no, he can't die. He keeps coming back, and the reason is that he will be there at the end of all creation is because death does not want him.
Yeah, well, that was the whole point. She kicked him out of being dead to get to the Silver Surfer. They brought him back. It's a great book.
He's basically just Death's simp.
The Thanos, it's a good one. He's a skeleton, and he just
so that's where I was at, Carson. If you could, did you have a follow up for me, or are we going back to that first issue?
Yeah, like just I kind of felt the same way as you, Andy, going to that. Like, it feels so out of place for the first issue where you got the things going on with Thanos, Death, Mephisto, and that whole crew, and soon his brother Star Fox, I think, gets his face wiped, of course, here in a little bit too. And then you have Silver Surfer and Doctor Strange having their chat so we can get the origin of Thanos. And then the other story is this random trio that gets in like this car crash, but then you find out over time it's Adam Warlock, Pip the Troll, and then Gamora. Doesn't really do it in this one, but I did want to get to the comments because there's a lot of great comments coming in already. Comments must explain what's going on.
Dry ass poos.
I'll let you guys.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
But we got the Mastodon says it was a good way to divert attention away from Mephisto. Focuses the need to be on the Thanos for the story. Where we were talking about that too as a pairing previously. Jeff Schultz says, I remember my local shop owner told me to read Silver Surfer along with the Infinity Run. And he ages himself.
Same age.
Game changer.
Wasn't a Sam Keith icon there? That's pretty cool. I dig it.
It's pretty awesome. Once again, shout out to Howler Mouse. Nice to see you in the chat. William Bird, what's going on, man? He says, I quit Silver Surfer when Marshall Rogers left the title, so I missed all the Surfer issues before Gauntlet, all of which...
It was a big deal that Starlin took over. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
Because it went from Englehart over.
That's right, the Englehart run. That's
Englehart was the first. Yep. He brought him back, yeah.
That Ron Lemart sells those issues, man.
Says, death by friend zone, I mean, friend zone by death. Either way, not fun.
Same difference, man. Same difference.
Yeah, so my next question for you guys is, we kind of see Thanos make his shrine to death in the middle of space. She still doesn't care. And then you go from that to him showing his greatest creation, his granddaughter Nebula. My question, what in the world has happened to Nebula? Why is she
he turned her into a corpse, pretty much. He took all her life away from her because she claims to be his granddaughter and he doesn't believe her. That's it. And that's the first time she's in the Silver Surfer comic, but that's the first time you see how that happens in the Surfer. But that's the first time you see her since like Avengers. She's been gone for a while too. Like Avengers in like the 300s area. So not like 20 years, but like a good couple of years she was gone.
Apparently, Jeff Schultz made his own logo. Come check out his IG, Chicago_Schultzy. Consider it done, Jeff.
Following him today.
Enjoying that.
But yeah, it's kind of just like a game of one-upsmanship here. He makes a shrine to death. He presents his granddaughter, like I said, Gamora already, who's a half a corpse. He blows up some guy who he doesn't like at all. And then he keeps getting dared and dared. Mephisto's kind of in his ear. And he's just like, what else can you do? By death, present death, and then snap. So this is where things get super weird. And it cuts to just what's going on in New York with Spider-Man, who all of a sudden realizes people are disappearing. And then he also remembers Mary Jane. So a lot of craziness here. You get some cool art. And all these characters drawn by George Perez as you go on. And then you start. Come on. What? I guess we'll just get this out of the way now. Let me stop my summary. So, Drew, we get half George Perez draws the first half, and then the second half
is much better.
Slim.
It is.
So, before I even get into anything,
I very much enjoyed
better than George Perez in this.
Look, I very much enjoyed the art in every single one of these issues. I'm just not sure who that guy who drew the first half is. I don't know him. I've never heard of him. I've never stood in a line that was properly capped at a con.
Yes, you did.
He was featured.
Yes, you did. Properly capped, right?
Properly capped. I'm pretty sure.
We were first.
Yeah, JD was standing there when it happened. I lost my ever-loving shit. I was livid. I was lit up. I was just like, are you kidding me? You kidding me right now? We're at C2E2, one of George Perez's last con appearances. Of course, at this point, he's appeared at like 7,000 more cons, and the cons are shut down.
2 more.
Cons are shut down. He's still showing up every weekend. Anyway, they cap his line. It's a good 100 people behind us. They cap the line. Cool. Then they come up to us and they say to us, we're capping the line up here because he's going to go to lunch in 2 hours. Bitch, you just got there. Did you just not have breakfast? They're like, oh, well, he needs to take breaks. Okay, then how about you properly cap the fucking line?
It's the only line I've ever seen.
He just lost his spot in the Hall of Fame, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, he took him off of Rushmore, literally.
No, he's not. He belongs. He doesn't belong in the gift shop sweeping up at Mount Rushmore of comics.
To sum up what Drew just said,
Ron Lim got his spot.
Ron Lim's art is better in Infinity Gauntlet because of a signing that happened in 2019 involving Drew.
It didn't happen because he doesn't know how to cap a line.
I got my signs
for capping his own lines. But anyway, we got.
Look, if your line gets capped, you're responsible for everybody in that line before you go to lunch, and that's just called good business.
So the snap happens, right?
Yes, the snap.
The heroes that are dusted away, if you don't know, are mega of the time. Maybe not now in your MCU world, but in really that time, Alpha Flight was a big deal, and 90% of them got fucking wiped. The Fantastic Four in its entirety, not 2 out of 4. They lost all 4 of them. And that's a big thing that it keeps going on, is that you lose that. I mean, Beast, almost
all of X Factor.
Almost all of remember, X Factor, not X-Men. Because X-Men was the Wolverine.
Cyclops.
I think Storm is wiped out. Iceman, Bobby is. I know that for sure.
Angel.
You take a lot of your A players off the table right away.
Yeah, out that era, they're all gone. And then you're left with Eric Masterson as Thor, which I will bring up more than one time. That this is the only Eric Masterson's. I don't hate Eric Masterson by any means, but this. It shows why Eric Masterson isn't Thor Odin's son in here, but it does show him pretty badass. But you got, Hulk, you got Drax, and that's a big part. It's Drax, and the Drax, if you don't know, in the comic was made to kill Thanos back in the 70s, and he comes back in Silver Surfer too. But him and Silver Surfer really don't get along. So anyway,
Drax the Destroyer's first appearance. Iron Man 55 with the first appearance of Thanos,
and half this book, one of the Celestials, which we'll get into. That's the fast part. But anyway, the snap happens, and literally half the universe gone, and that's exactly what happens. Same thing in the movie happens this time, and except they don't wait 5 years to kind of get their shit together pretty quick because they knew it was coming, like the last time. But this time they were able to. He did it just out of nowhere. There was no battle for it. That comes later. But if you think about it, the one thing about this snap that really wiped out the major players, and you didn't know who it was until they come later on and cameo later on. You're like, oh, cool, they're there. But you'll see that in a little bit. I mean, what did you think of the snap effect? Had the same thing, I think, in the movie as it did in the comic. At least when I read it back in 91, I'm like, who the fuck is he gonna fight? I
think the thing about the snap in the book versus the movie is that in the book it's set up. In the movie, it's a conclusion. It's definitely set up for Endgame, but that snap comes at the end of that movie. That snap is the victory of Thanos, where in this one, it's not so much his victory as in it's his first move that causes the rest of the universe to kind of jump up and take notice.
I kind of think
I also want to shout out real quick the chat, and I love this about our chat. Such great participants. Right now you got Howler Mouse and William Bird schooling Chris Barrett and Schultz on Alpha Flight. That's pretty awesome. Huge.
Alpha Flight was really big back then.
We're gonna put Alpha Flight on the fucking poll. Do it.
Yeah, they're really good.
The whole run.
It's not that many.
All 110 issues.
Perez hugged him so hard that he got a beard burn on his face. True story. Showing what a nice guy George Perez is.
Yeah, George Perez, after he cut me out of his line, gave my good friend Caitlin Becker a fantastic case of the con crud.
She did.
What a scumbag that George Perez.
Dressed like Starfire, got 2 hugs that day. I was present for both of those hugs. So George Perez, he's a really nice guy, one of the best. But Andy, I was going to ask you before. Oh, jeez. Anyway, what did you think about the characters they took out, Andy? Were there any you're like, oh man, am I going to get a chance to read this character in this book?
No, as a first-time reader, I just kind of felt like they were, capping the line on people they were going to be able to fit into the end battle.
Apparently, he was better at it back then than he was in 2019.
George does know how to cap.
In all seriousness, you can only get to so many characters in an event story. I mean, this was almost 230, 240 pages. Can you imagine trying to add 12, 15, 20 more characters? From a realistic standpoint, I think about it from the process, from a writer and artist. They were probably doing it just to save themselves a bit of. They wanted to deliver a story, but they didn't want to deliver something that all of a sudden became very convoluted and very hard to follow and understand with that much cannon fodder they're just going to keep throwing. So I get that. And what did I think about it at the end of the day? Really, I'm not a big Fantastic Four fan yet. Modern Men seems to be changing me substantially week to week on what I'm a fan of. So eventually that might change. But they pulled out a lot of the characters that I didn't even really think a second thought about, to be honest with you.
Well, Daredevil was one. Black Panther.
I could imagine Daredevil throwing a stick at Thanos.
What's he gonna do? I know, right? Like, I love me some Daredevil, but
yeah,
I think the big one was Beast. That was the one.
Yeah,
I guess that was the one that, if you think about it, kind of fucked up the X Factor pretty good. Sorry for the swearing.
Yeah, the X Factor. I mean, they got completely wiped out minus Cyclops. Just so Cyclops. We'll talk about him a little bit later because he gets pretty embarrassed himself. But the way I kind of look at it, like you guys were saying, that like the snap in the movie, of course, that was like the climax of the first part of 2 movies. This, in my opinion, is the start of the Infinity Gauntlet, and I mean that by not only is he wearing like an actual wrist gauntlet, this is like his gauntlet you have to go through, basically. And I love this because he doesn't even touch Earth in this, and yet they're seeing all these effects of just Thanos screwing around in the cosmos somewhere. Like, it starts with him doing the snap and wiping out half of existence, and then he does something else crazy, and you're getting ready to see like tsunamis and tidal waves that are getting ready to hit Earth here in issue 2, which we'll start going into. And he, like I said, they're like, wheat crap, we got to go after Thanos, because if we sit here and do nothing, we're all going to die. He's that powerful right now. He doesn't even need to like think about Earth. They don't even know what he looks like probably. And he's messing with their lives already to that craziness. And then the next part of the gauntlet is, well, I don't know if I can call it a fight, or I guess my wrestling term for the night, a squash match with Thanos. So, and then the Celestials and that stuff later. So we'll keep going here because we're already 38 minutes in, and we're just hitting issue 2. So we'll kind of get the flow going a little bit faster. So
we might have
issue
to run
2 kind of starts off with Thanos and his big fist. He says, "Let nihilism reign supreme."
Nihilism.
And you kind of see the heroes kind of start to get together because there's planes crashing, kind of like that post-credit scene in the movie, except this one's better because you actually get to see some of the heroes react to it and help save some of the planes. And then you get to see a character I don't know too much about reveal himself, Kazar. So what do you guys think of Kazar coming and revealing himself at this point?
Yeah, this is I don't know. It was he plays a big part, but he hasn't been seen for in years either. So I don't know. I wasn't a big fan.
Yeah, I wasn't either, to be honest. It felt like I kind of felt like Dr. Light in the Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point. They reveal this like big, huge character, and then I think they end up doing one thing later down the line. Like, literally, they do one thing later that maybe makes the difference for another character, but beyond that, like, I don't know if it deserved like his own page and big reveal and all that stuff. I would rather just them spent more time on Doctor Strange, which that's pretty much what they do. It's just Doctor Strange kind of figuring things out. And then who else is meddling? This is the part I like, even though Does he do much later? Kind of not really, but it just shows how big of an impact this event is when villains and heroes have to team up. You get Dr. Doom.
The
So,
best
Andy,
part.
what did you think of Dr. Doom?
I was kind of surprised to see Doom show up. And honestly, the only Doom rolls over every time anybody talks. Yeah, just settle down, Doom. He's okay. You know, he just takes it. He just takes it to the chin and just rolls over for the entire read. And I'm like, well, why didn't you just get rid of Doom while you were at it too? Because I don't know. It was fun. I laughed a lot.
So meanwhile on Titan, we're starting to get to know some of these like intergalactic characters as well. We've talked about Drax the Destroyer, but this is where you get Thanos' brother Star Fox kind of introduced for the first time, and all those characters, which once again, my background on those is minimal. But basically Thanos is like, oh yeah, my brother, I get to pick on him too. So he uses the Infinity Gauntlet, swoops him up, locks him in a chair, and then he tries to use his powers one time, and he immediately kind of like, I'll make a second reference tonight for wrestling because why not? He loses his smile like Shawn Michaels here. So what did you guys think of Star Fox and, Thanos get a chance to, get some comeuppance on him for whatever?
So let me interject for a moment. Don't they refer to him as Eros in the book?
That's his name.
Yeah, it's Eros. Eros is Star Fox. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
So what you have
Star Fox
is
his Avengers code name.
Yeah, it's his made up name. It had to be done. I mean, Eros plays a big part in the early parts of Thanos' run, and certainly into this part. So he makes him his little bitch and takes his mouth away. That's it. Shut up.
And then you finally get to see the characters that have disappeared.
You're great.
So we also lost Hawkeye, Hercules. Thank God we lost Firestar. I was never a big fan of hers in that Spider-Man cartoon.
Other Firestar. Like, come on, that ain't right.
US Agent, the Wasp, Cersei, Shaman, some of those other characters I'm not super familiar with from the late 80s, early 90s. Quicksilver. We lost Quicksilver.
Yeah. Luke Cage.
Dagger, so you kind of get to see Cloak later on.
That was cool.
Talk about how, Dagger, disappeared.
Oh, Cloak and Dagger.
Black Cat, which I thought was kind of random to add to the list. It's like, they really like Black Cat that much at this point to put her on the list of missing heroes.
She was kind of the big deal in Spider-Man at the time.
Yeah, so we even get some Odin involvement here. So Odin's just like, oh, this isn't good. And then his Rainbow Bridge breaks, and they kind of don't do a lot after that. Then you get to see Dr. Doom come back, and kind of like Andy said, once Adam Warlock shows up, Dr. Doom's kind of like just in the background, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then Howler mounts with an awesome quote: Firestar, I have the power of a microwave oven.
You don't want to talk about Star Fox as a pervert in this. Can we talk about his power set real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. First of all, Star Fox can't be a rapist. Because in order to be a rapist, you need to attack or touch somebody or, affect them against their will. And Star Fox's power is to change somebody's will. So therefore could never be a rapist. He's just really, really sexy. That's just how it goes, man. Don't be jelly.
Why did I tell Drew to go ahead with that?
It's like this beard.
Interesting.
Is he kind of like the psycho pirate of this? I can't wait for.
Well, the psycho pirate's Nebula.
I guess you're not wrong there. So basically, this is where we kind of get the second part of our gauntlet, if you will. Well, not only that, you kind of get. We were talking about villains earlier, kind of seeking help, like Dr. Doom going to the heroes. You also get Galactus, who's just like, well, this isn't good. Maybe I should seek my own type of help. And then that's when Earth kind of gets hit with this almost Thanos wave. And you get your first look at even Wolverine here, saving a mother and her child. And then Iron Man's in space. Like I said, the heroes, they're all just kind of figuring out what's going on at this point. Tidal waves are hitting. Earthquakes are hitting. You have Eric Masterson like, well, there's no more Japan, so Japan is underwater.
Sorry, K. Titus.
Earth is pulled out of its orbit, You got to understand, Earth pulled out of its orbit, so it's snowstorms and all sorts of shit going on. It's all fucked up.
You also get a really powerful point there between Hulk and Wolverine as well, where they sit down and hey, we've done a lot of scrapping. Yep, they've done a lot of scrapping over the time. They know themselves, they know each other better than most other heroes out there, and then they make that connection to death. Right?
Wolverine convinces Hulk to join the team.
Mm-hmm.
Flat out. That's exactly what happens. I mean, it's She-Hulk's there. But this was probably one of the best. That's one of the best parts of the whole. It's the one thing I remember the most about, like the assembly, is the Wolverine conversation with the Hulk.
Yeah, that same here. Exactly. I thought it was interesting the fact that he wasn't an Avenger at this point. It seemed like he hadn't been an Avenger for a while, but he kind of had like the Banner Hulk, crossover going on. So I figured they would have naturally let him back on the team, but apparently they still didn't trust him. So it kind of took Wolverine to be like, we've fought a bunch of times, just thinking even back to that Hulk 340 cover with Wolverine on it and the reflection that Todd McFarlane did. And I mean, it's kind of funny thinking about later the impact that, the Illuminati had on Hulk, and they launched him into space. And so even after this, there's obviously still a lot of trust issues between Hulk and the rest of the Avengers.
Well, yeah, they even list that in the story. They talk about how something had taken place and he hadn't been a part of the Avengers since then, or hadn't
the first issue
invite. Yeah,
the first issue of Avengers is the only time he's in it. Then he goes with the Defenders with Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange hates the Avengers too.
Oh yeah,
he's not a fan. They're not a fan of each other. The Defenders, and the Avengers, they had a whole year of fighting.
No shirt, no shoes, no avenging.
So going into issue 3, we get more letters with Thanos. I absolutely love when Thanos gets a chance to spell out things using planets and such. So at this point, he is using entire planets just to spell Thanos above his nice, death right here. So I absolutely love this opening panel where it just says Thanos and planets. So he's literally endangered billions just so he can show his name to death, basically.
Yeah, I mean, fuck them if they can't take a joke.
Well, I mean, if I could backpedal for 30 seconds in a few pages before where you're at right now, they did an excellent job showing Galactus in a way that made Galactus seem much smaller than he really is. And that plays a big role in the story for me as a first-time reader. I know Galactus. Galactus has been pretty prevalent lately as well, too, right? But for him to be on the pages and look normal in size made for his appearance later in the story to play it was a much bigger impact. It was really cool to see that. I picked that up right off the bat, and that's the artist at work right there.
Yeah, it's kind of just, you don't see Galactus presented in a vulnerable form too often, but when they do, it definitely has a huge effect on the story for sure. But yeah, as we kind of go along, I mean, like I said, the planets, they're in Thanos' orbit now. And you kind of just see, the street level heroes. They're putting together their big team finally. They know they have to go assault Thanos. And basically, Adam Warlock is kind of telling them what's happening, what they're going to do, where they're going to go. And as we keep going, you kind of start to realize that Adam Warlock, he's convincing them they have a chance, but then he starts talking to Silver Surfer, and he knows they don't have a chance. But even before that, you kind of see this big meeting of all these intergalactic, larger-than-life characters. So we saw the street-level people, and JD's got the cover up. But Silver Surfer and Adam Warlock go to this big meeting of the Celestials. So what did you guys think of seeing probably most of these characters together for the first time? You got the Watcher, the Living Tribunal, the powerful and enigmatic Stranger, all these other characters. So what did you guys take away from this scene here?
The only character that could stand up to Thanos in that entire situation is the Living Tribunal, hands down. He's the only one, and he chooses not to. because it's not, and he says he chooses not to. And that leaves Eternity, Infinity, two other Celestials, Love and Hate, and Chaos and Order. All the cosmic characters are right there, and Galactus as well. And they can't do anything. They can't do a thing. They know they can. They're going to try. But Thanos is the only one they begged pretty much to put that Thanos on trial for murder. And the Living Tribunal says, nope. They didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, technically through the gems being naturally occurring, his use of the gems is naturally occurring, and that's kind of the way that it's seen from the Living Tribunal. But again, I think that this whole issue, for the most part, not only just the scene, is again Starlin giving you a measuring stick for Thanos. It's like saying, "Oh, you think he's this powerful because he owned all these heroes, or he's taken all the planets out of orbit." No, he's so powerful that the next 100 powerful characters are all teaming up to decide what the fuck to do about him because there's nothing they can do.
Yeah, they definitely talk about natural selection to a degree, where Thanos is the next up-and-coming thing, and he's utilized the tools that he's found that are available to him, and they're just like, oh, well, hey, he's the new upcomer, he's the new riser. As a first-time reader, I think they did an excellent job pausing on the 2-page panel there to introduce
I love that.
big players, the big heavy hitters, the Celestials, Galactus, everybody. I think they did a great job pausing and doing that for people that don't have a lot of history and a lot of backstory with that. I love that. I greatly appreciated that.
Same.
But what I really appreciated was I really liked the Celestials in there. There's been the Celestials, there's been some scenes, there's been some images and drops for the Eternals coming up. And that corner image right there, that's the face I remember seeing on one of the trailers dropping, I think. I could be wrong, but it's a great read from 1991 is incredibly relevant right now. That it bridges that, and I'm like, oh my god, that's so cool. It pulls me deeper into the story.
In the previous Doctor Strange run, the Herald of Galactus, when he was a Herald, the Herald Supreme, the Living Tribunal and Eternity are talking to him, and they reference the Infinity Gauntlet, that the Living Tribunal, you had your chance to do it. Now I'm taking care of Galactus, and I'm doing it myself. And Doctor Strange is fighting with the Living Tribunal, says, you put me on trial, but you don't put Thanos on trial and it's really good. Yeah. And it doesn't happen because Galactus comes and fights the Surfer. It's a whole big deal.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're a fan of these characters, the Living Tribunal, Eternity, Chaos and Order, Thanos even, and you're looking for something more modern where they're explored, writer of The Immortal Hulk, Al Ewing, after Secret Wars, when they put the Marvel cosmology back together, he did everything through Ultimates and Ultimates Squared. He rebuilt all that from scratch, made Galactus the life bringer, brought Thanos back from beyond eternity, put eternity in chains, re-established an order between chaos and order. And it's just there's just so much stuff that he explores there that if you're a fan of like this era of cosmic Marvel, that's definitely another playground you want to play in.
Good call.
Nice. I was actually going to ask that. Like, what should I read if I'm interested in these characters? Are there any other reads we need to seek out?
Starlin kind of does the most of it beyond the Silver Surfer.
And the Doctor Strange run, the Herald Supreme, the one with Mark Waid did with Barry Kitson, absolutely. They're all in there. They're all in there. Galactus, Living Tribunal. I mean, he's a Herald. I mean, he's the Herald Supreme, so he's got to fight the old one, which is Surfer, and Hulk's in it, and Galactus, and they kind of have it's a big moment that actually I hear now that they're doing the Thor run. The Doctor Strange is going to make the appearance and saying, I've been a Herald too, So
he did show, he was at the meeting of the Heralds.
Yeah, meeting of the Heralds.
Issue 1.
And there's another herald in this book.
Firestar.
Firestorm.
Firestorm. Yes, you're right.
The flame guy isn't.
Yes.
Johnny Blaze or Johnny Johnny Storm. It's
Firestorm.
Yeah, he's the current herald of Galactus.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because I was kind of asking myself, because I remember seeing that one panel. I was like, didn't Johnny Storm disappear in the previous? Or it's like, is this the Golden Age Human Torch? Or I was wondering.
It's a Human Torch of space.
Okay, I got it. So, kind of skipping along once again here. The heroes are still kind of putting their battle plan together, which is all null and void here shortly. But
Knights with a big shout out for 70s Warlock. I agree.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like you said, Starlin and Warlock from earlier. But I always find it interesting when the Watcher shows up. You know, things are about to get real when the Watcher shows up. So, Watcher, he shows up to Death's door, basically. Almost literally Death's door. She has a shrine to her now because of Thanos. And he talks about how he's getting ready to have the heavens will run with blood, but in the end, as always, Thanos will stand triumphant. And then you get the scene we already talked about with Hulk and Wolverine, where Wolverine convinces him to come along. And then Thanos gets so bored at this point, he decides, well, Death, if you're not going to pay attention to me, I'm going to create someone to pay attention to me. And that's where we get Taraxia. So, what's up with Taraxia, Drew?
Look, I mean, if you make a lady version of you to touch your dingus, technically you're just touching your own dingus. Like
I don't know. He's batshit, right? He doesn't even care.
He's just jacking it via Infinity Gauntlet.
And he's literally just made her just to piss off Death. Like it's like he cares.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna make you jealous, lady. She's just like
trying to get with Death since 1973.
Whatever, man.
It's 1991. It's been 18 years of him not getting anything.
I do love this scene though. It's like it reminds me of like a Silver Age first appearance, for instance, like where we got our first appearance of Batgirl, and she's like jumped through the hoop, like, yay, I'm here! It's my first appearance. Look at me. And then Taraxia's like doing the same thing here, like, yay, look at me, I'm Taraxia, woohoo! And then literally the next page she is on, it shows her like embracing Thanos, and all Thanos is doing is just staring at Death.
Yep.
The whole time, like, she looking at me. Yep. She looking at Taraxia. What's going on? Death. What is going on? Just like
that's not creepy at all.
Yeah, exactly. Just even shows the glimmer in his eye when he's looking at Death.
Yeah,
he's not paying any mind to Taraxia 30 seconds after her creation.
The scent of desperation is not a turn on. Sorry, Thanos.
He's the worst part about him.
Yeah, so this is where the heroes, they finally figured out where Thanos is at, where they need to go. Doctor Strange is teleporting them there. And basically you get like this whole thing where Silver Surfer's asking Adam Warlock. He's finally putting two and two together. And he's just talking about how, like, what are they doing? And then that's where Adam Warlock's like, he's literally says, they're sacrificial lambs. They're more or less a distraction. And that's where you go, and this is like the perfect halfway point, in my opinion, where you get that whole like climax where you're just like, these heroes don't stand a chance. What is going to happen? Because obviously it's superheroes. They're not going to go die, but they're going to go die. So we're in this crazy halfway point now, which exactly.
Come and get me.
Next cover. Who's
this
next?
Is my favorite cover of the bunch.
Yes, I agree 100%. This is actually an issue I need to seek out at some point. It just says, come and get me. Beautiful George Perez cover. But I believe this is where you start getting some of that Ron Lim art.
Yep.
And then literally then the opening pages, he's flicking away Mjolnir like it's nothing. And he's basically just having fun with these characters, is he not? Like, he doesn't need to fight them, but he's just like, yeah, and I think someone gets in his ear, it's Mephisto again. And he's just like, you know what would impress Lady Death? If you just like literally bathed in their blood and took them out one by one.
Well, we literally get to a point where he downgrades his level of perception and power through the stones to make it a fair fight to try. Well, not
make it more fun. Yeah,
more fun fight to try to win over death again.
Just play New Game Plus.
It's Mephistos again in Thanos' ear, and Evil trying to play to Thanos like, hey, and just throwing in that crazy
right.
The term escapes me at the moment, but just trying to throw a wild card out there, right? And that made for a really fun event there.
Yeah, Howler Mouse said in the chat back before he left, because he's got to work tomorrow. So thanks for tuning in, Howler. He said, when I was 17, this came out. It was the first story I couldn't figure out how the heroes were going to win, and the real reason I was hooked. I agree. Like this story does not give you any sort of shred of hope for our plucky heroes at this point. Everything they throw at Thanos, he's just like, meh.
I mean, everybody gets it. I mean, everybody except for the only 3 I think that survive, or 4 that survive, are Hulk, Drax, Eric Masterson, Thor, Doctor Strange, and Silver Surfer, and Adam, obviously.
And somehow Cap hangs around for a while too, because it's Cap.
And then he gets punched and he's dead.
Yeah. Yeah, so you see how easily he dispatches of the characters. Like you have Namor and She-Hulk, they get turned into like something, like some sort of gray substance.
They get like Peace Pot Pete on them or something. You never know.
One of my favorite parts in this battle is Thanos like warps Thor's hammer to another dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So after about a minute, he reverts to his former self, and then he's sitting there choking,
suffocating in space,
waiting for the hammer to come back for this other dimension, and it makes it just in time. I love that part.
What makes it this battle even there is there's a time limit. They only have 60 minutes to do it because the air runs out on Doctor Strange's spell in 60 minutes. So if they don't finish this fight, they're dead anyway. So it's a suicide mission. So
yeah, and then the whole spell doesn't even count for it. Only counts for Thor, but not Eric Masterson. So if he reverts back to Eric Masterson, he only has like 1 minute instead of an hour. But I think another one of my favorite parts is where they're hyping up Wolverine, and somehow he's getting the death blow in, and then he gets immediately just embarrassed and taken out. He gets turned to like putty, basically.
Yeah.
Because even Adam Warlock's like, I never would have anticipated Wolverine getting a strike like that.
And it's like Thanos knows he cheated and he used the Reality Stone, which is something he didn't do before with the other ones. So it's one of the times you see him use each of the stones for something, sending people back in time, doing everything else. But that's the first time he uses the Reality Stone. And other than when he does it on earlier in it, when he's doing the puppet show for death, you know.
Yeah. And then you get Wolverine taken out by a Cyclops. Gets taken out by an invisible box. It's probably my favorite kill here. He just gets completely embarrassed. He's like, I'm not even going to turn and look at you. You get an invisible box. It's like, Mark, go back to your box.
I can't even be mad at that. Cyclops, I believe, is one of the greatest characters in the Marvel Pantheon. And he just gets completely bitched. And I think it's funny.
No, he was actually, when he was fighting, it was him and I think Scarlet Witch, right?
Yeah. Scarlet Witch is the kind of the one that Thanos is more focused on. He just gets IB.
And then, but then he does his where Cyclops goes hysterical and does the full-on beam, and Thanos starts getting back where he has to put that on him because it's pushing him, but he could easily stop it, which he does.
I kind of feel like it's just when a fly is on your shoulder and you're just like, get away from me.
At this point, he's stronger than everybody. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, it says literally Thanos never falls for the same trick twice. So they do this one trick earlier that actually succeeds where Hulk and Drax get a double punch, but then they try it again, and then Vision gets a fist through his chest. So a lot of fun here, to say the least. Not fun for our heroes, but yeah, it's just a lot of them getting embarrassed. And like you said, there are a few survivors somehow. Even though like Thanos gets turned to glass and shattered. My other favorite part is Kazar. They're building up Kazar. You're just like, yeah, Kazar. and he's got like these new hand gauntlets, and he immediately just loses his hands because Thanos didn't like his hands.
He's kind of like the wannabe Captain Marvel. You know, he was the replacement. Marvel never came back after death of Captain Marvel. You know, he's never going to come back. So Marvel, that's pretty much who he replaced with the photon, you know, before Carol Danvers in the movie.
Yeah, so mainly the only reason Adam Warlock orchestrated this, it seems like, is so Captain America could get punched in the face, basically. So it shows his grand master plan was to have Silver Surfer launch at Thanos as he's punching Cap. He misses. Cap gets one punch in where it looks like, you know, Thanos is just opening a window, basically. And then he just gets backhand slapped and killed. Not even a punch, a backhand slap. So, Andy, what was your final take on the heroes versus Thanos before we move on to the astral heroes, if you will, here?
I think they did an incredibly good job utilizing them as the fodder that they technically were, right? I mean, 60 minutes of air. Were they really going to make it? My favorite part was Thanos had a retort for every hero that was out there, especially when the Hulk came into play. Thanos was like, oh, really? And then tripled or quadrupled in size and towered over the Hulk. And then, you know, turning Thor into glass. Just a lot of the retorts that they had for all of the heroes were a good time. And the way they segued it next, moving in to kind of like the next level of the battle, is my favorite part. That's really kind of my favorite part. I told you guys I couldn't put the book down. By issue 3, I was reading at a furious rate while trying to pace myself so that I could take this in and actually absorb it, because I think part of it, Drew's right. I think part of it is when the Ron Lim art really kicked in. I just kind of sucked me in as well. And the story, the flow and the rate of the story and the battle, just I couldn't put it down. I really couldn't put it down. I was supposed to have gone to bed at a certain point, and I think I stayed up till like 2:30 in the morning reading this book.
Nice. And yeah, by issue 5, it's purely just Ron Lim art, and I haven't had a chance to talk about Ron Lim. I think this art is awesome as well. Like I know I'm kind of a mark for George Perez, which we'll get plenty of time later down the line to talk more about George Perez. But Ron Lim, for my opinion, like the art transition for me is seamless. I really like both of their contributions to this book, and if I wasn't paying so close attention to who was doing the art at the beginning of every issue, if I just read this in one sit through, I probably wouldn't have noticed too much of a change, to be honest, in my opinion, because I like both artists' work so well that it's not a distraction for me. But I do like, especially once he starts drawing those larger characters. We have a super chat in the chat here. And it says, DruManchu, Andy was right when he said Drew was right. Wow. Well,
oh, boy.
Since you paid $5, which is going right to the Year Initiative, I'll give you one. And it's even you.
Hey, we're best friends. Let's do karate in the garage.
Oh, it's a trifecta.
Yeah. So thanks, Drew. Drew, would you like to elaborate on that now that we've gotten the gimmick out?
Man, Ron Lim's art is fucking delicious in this book. I want to eat it up like a goddamn cupcake. It's fantastic. The work he was doing in Punisher, the work he was doing on those covers is continued. I'm sorry, the Silver Surfer, the work he was doing on those covers, it just continues here. He does a great job with it. He does a lot of other work with Starlin throughout this era in the cosmic universe, and man, he's doing some great work on covers of all those characters today for Marvel. The guy just has not missed a step. Just did a great cover for the new Empire guidebook for that event. Fantastic looking cover.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So as we get, I mean, there's a lot of it's almost just like purely action at this point, where you get these cool panels of him fighting the Celestials. And of course, most of this is pretty much just so you can display the true power of Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet. He basically has this nice little prison for him above the death sculpture. So even poor Galactus is like the centerpiece of it. And then you just see all of them sitting there completely helpless. And he just goes, "For I am Thanos, I am supreme." So, and then he gets a little cocky, but who shows up next? Eternity. So then you get to see him. This is like the big main event. This is why the Watcher showed up. He's just like, I enjoyed the undercard, some solid, 3-star matches, but I need to see the biggest main event of all time, Eternity versus Thanos. And you just see like flashes of light.
Everything gets cosmic here.
Yeah, exactly. It gets super cosmic. Then you see because when you see the death sculpture tribute or whatever, it's presented pretty big on the page the whole time. But when Thanos beats Eternity, for the first time, it's like that big on the page, and then you just see Thanos and how big and grand he can actually get right there. Yeah, I'll show JD's screen real quick.
Yeah, so. I love this panel.
This is my favorite twist in the story.
Absolutely. So like right there, it just shows like how crazy power this can get, and then something weird happens. So he's left his body. He got too cocky, basically. And that's when Nebula, of all people, rotting flesh, strikes and takes the Infinity Gauntlet away from Thanos.
Hell yeah.
So
my favorite twist in the whole
take on Infinity Gauntlet champion Nebula.
I mean, it fits so well for the story. But it's something where he gets overconfident. To quote your overconfidence is your weakness. Your faith in your granddaughter's yours. But in reality, what happens is, after he gets the Celestial head and starts going into ultimate, I'm the greatest of all time, I'm now the new eternity. He left his body there and he left his guard down. So.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because the rest of the remaining heroes at this point, they're even kind of like, it seems like they're more concerned now. Because at least like Thanos, he had the Titan power, know-how, and ability to at least wield the gems. And they could kind of start to predict his next move. It's kind of like know thy enemy, basically. So when Nebula gets it, there's like, she has no clue what she's going to do or what she's doing. So that like she could like destroy reality on accident at this point. At least Thanos seems to be semi-interested on maintaining some sort of reality. But then it's so desperate that they're like, all right, let's just bring Thanos in like instantly. So what did you guys think about this? Is where I feel like the story may be just a bit rushed. Like, it's just kind of hard to believe that, like, all right, we need Thanos for this next part, even though he just killed like all of our friends and half of existence. So what did you guys think about this?
I don't think you're wrong by using the term rushed a little bit, but I definitely want to hear what JD has to say.
I kind of, it doesn't happen. It happens fast in the book, but it's not like there's not a lot of dissension about it. And he himself tells them why. He goes, I don't want to be doing this much like you, but we can't let her have this thing. This is way too much. Her brain can't handle it. She's going to fuck everything up. I learned my lesson. And, Thanos, you have to understand, he's crazy. He's a mad Titan. He talks to himself. Actually, I think one of the issues is pretty much you hear just everything is, it's almost like it's narrated. You don't get a lot of dialogue from the action scenes. You just get a lot of narration. In this case, the dialogue of Thanos pretty much says, she's going to fuck everything. She's going to mess everything up. She's really going to mess everything up. So, and they want to do it, but they really don't have a choice. I mean, he's the strongest. He's still the strongest of them. He's still stronger than them, and he knows what to do. But in reality, if it wasn't for Mephisto,
Yeah, I kind of like this scene here where I think this scene with Adam Warlock and Thanos kind of shows Adam Warlock's true power, which is his words. Because if you can convince Thanos to do anything at all, that's a pretty incredible accomplishment, really. So he basically, in this one scene here between them, he kind of convinces Thanos to aid them in their mission, which I thought that was a nice little scene. Kind of like how Adam Warlock convinced all the heroes to be the sacrificial lambs earlier. And he kind of had his court with the Celestials where he didn't quite get the living tribunal, but at least he got, Eternity and everybody else. So I did kind of enjoy that part of the scene there. But yeah, as the book goes on, you kind of see one last ditch effort to go after Nebula now, and she immediately just captures all of the heroes, and then that's where we kind of get like our final four, and it's Doctor Strange, Silver Surfer, Adam Warlock, and Thanos. So what an ending splash panel to go in to the very last issue here. So any thoughts before we go into the final issue number 6?
Yeah, spoilers for the movie Endgame, but I think they really missed the opportunity when they brought back good Nebula and evil Nebula to have one of the Nebulas grab that damn gauntlet and kind of pay some homage to this. Then you'd have to have Thanos, become part of the team up with the Avengers. Maybe it wouldn't have played as well on film as I'm thinking in my head right now, but that seems pretty cool. I kind of wish that happened.
They nerfed Nebula.
Can we get a Snyder cut of this movie so I can? Hey, if we bitch enough on the internet, right? HBO will make this, right?
You're not wrong.
Case.
Ben Affleck is gonna be like, I am Iron Man. Okay. And then he'll just disappear.
No, don't do it.
All right, so yeah, we immediately kind of get the other part. I feel like was super rushed and convenient, but it is what it is. Where one of Nebula's snaps just reverts to 24 hours ago, kind of just to make Thanos mad here. So, well, what did you guys think of this scene where Nebula is like, "All right, everything you did, Thanos, just to make you mad, we're rewinding everything 24 hours, just cause."
Well, it's catty as hell.
She undoes the snap pretty much, but more than that, she goes back a little further.
Absolutely. So that way we get, at least, hey, K-Tides, if you're still watching, we got Japan back, thank goodness. So there's that. And then you kind of see all the other dead heroes back on Earth. You see the snap unsnapped, and then they kind of just go from there. And then somehow, like, whoops, I forgot 24 hours ago, I was a corpse. And she made a mistake. Didn't take too long for her to make that mistake where all of a sudden there's a corpse wearing the Infinity Gauntlet, and then they're trying to wrest it away from each other. And then somehow Silver Surfer takes a blow from the gauntlet in all this madness. And then, oh, wait a minute, the cosmic beings are back. Yay! So then they just cause all kinds of chaos, and then they throw Silver Surfer
and Order
in the Soul World. Yeah, and Order. Yeah, that's right. And then everywhere at once in the universe of the Soul Gem. So then this is where they kind of apprehend Thanos. I know I'm kind of paraphrasing here to kind of get through the last issue. So Nebula somehow gets back with everything, and luckily, them being in the Soul Gem, they're able to kind of wrest control of everything that's going on. And then the big tough guys get to be big tough guys. They get to beat up Thanos finally. You get Eric Masterson, Thor, and actually they're just wrestling over the gauntlet at this point. I like how Hulk and Drax are like fighting each other. He's like, we're on the same side, you idiot. That's one of my favorite parts. It's definitely kind of like the Dave Bautista Drax. It's like the only time in the whole book that reminded me of our current version of Drax, where it's kind of like goofy and ignorant and lovable way, where he's got Hulk in a headlock. And then it ends with Adam Warlock finally getting the gauntlet on. And luckily, he's kind of level-headed enough to not want to take over the universe. So what did you guys think of this whole sequence of events?
I think it does a whole lot more setup for what comes after than it does conclusion for this story. I think that Thanos getting his comeuppance is really all the conclusion for this story that you need. Everything else that kind of falls out from it rolls into Infinity Crusade or the Infinity War, into the Quasar solo story, Warlock and the Infinity Watch. It all it branches off into so much more content that Starlin kind of creates his his own cosmic universe within Marvel. And it's very enjoyable. Not until Abnett and Lanning and their work on Annihilation and Guardians of the Galaxy do we really get that much cosmic stuff going on at the same time in the Marvel universe.
It's actually, I compare,
it's like three phases. It's pretty much it's Jack Kirby's cosmic stuff, it's Starlin's cosmic stuff, and it's Abnett and Lanning's cosmic stuff. And now you're getting to that Donny Cates the cosmic stuff, which is kind of tying everything together. But I don't think it's on the level of what Jim Starlin did with this whole deal.
I kind of think like Annihilation was the Infinity Gauntlet of that era, because
it was like the renaissance of all these characters.
All the cosmic came back. I mean, in this book, we didn't even mention Annihilus just showing up out of nowhere. Annihilus is the basis of Annihilation, and it stems from here. I mean, you could tell this is where the characters are, it's done really well. And Adam Warlock is pretty well prevalent in the Guardians of the Galaxy. So
yeah, so it basically ends. Thanos gets his farmland. There's like the Infinity Watch characters there. I'm guessing they're getting ready to break off in their own book. Chad's playing Fortnite. Have fun, Chad. I think he's playing with Donny Cates or what. I don't know what that's all about. But anyway, that's where the book kind of ends with Scarecrow, Thanos, and then they see him hanging out with his own little cabin there. So yeah, Infinity Gauntlet. What are your guys' I guess my main question, post Infinity Gauntlet, what would you guys suggest people go read next? Would it be Infinity War, or would you maybe go toward the Infinity Watch book? Is that worth reading at all? What would you guys read next?
The artwork in Warlock and the Infinity Watch is done by Daryl Skelton, and he's very much like a Ron Lim. Older, I think. But if I like the Infinity Watch storyline, it kind of crosses over into Silver Surfer and Thor. But I mean, Infinity Crusade is what it is. It's really not that good.
Infinity diminishing returns on all the stuff, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
it has less of a luster as it goes on.
Yeah, I mean, the stones are the gems are the gems. Not until the Infinity by Hickman is it as prevalent as it is there, for a different reason.
I think if you enjoyed this stuff, you'll probably enjoy Warlock and the Infinity Watch.
Yeah, I think
you'll probably enjoy Infinity War and Infinity Crusade. Probably just not as much. I would think that, as far as quality, I would hop up to the Annihilation stuff and start getting kind of the modern Marvel take on what's going on with all these cosmic characters, because through the 90s, I would say through the mid 90s, Starlin kind of had his say with all these characters, kind of had his control of where these stories were going, and that stuff's all great, but there's definitely more to enjoy with these characters than just books with the Infinity title in them. I'd say that if you're a fan of these characters and this kind of storytelling, check out the Abnett and Lanning Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that Thanos, I mean, Starlin has a lot of these Thanos
this
trade
one here,
paperback. They're just OGNs, they call them, original graphic novels.
Yeah, this graphic novel of the Infinity Revelation goes back to everything you have there, and it's really good. It's way better art. It's much more modernized, but it goes from the Gauntlet to the Annihilation run. It's the revelation of how that all happened. So kind of
that's one to pick up. And I think that this is kind of a bridge between old and new. Infinity Gauntlet is, and I think that when you switch that, there's a very literal switch in the art, I believe, whereas Perez is the old school and Ron Lim is more of the new school, even though they're kind of the same era. I think that there's definitely a more modern look to Ron Lim's art in this book than there is to George Perez, which has more of a classical look. So I think that you kind of see that evolution throughout this book. I think this is the book that we talked about DC and how like Dark Knight kind of is the benchmark for the modern era of comics at DC. And I think that at Marvel, this is very much the benchmark, I think, of the modern event comic, and modern Marvel as a whole. I think that things just felt a little bit different after this, and I really enjoy that.
Nice. What about you, Andy? What is your next direction if you want to keep reading Thanos Infinity Gem books? Like, what's something you're thinking about reading next?
This is an incredibly difficult question to answer, being a first-time reader of Infinity Gauntlet. But this is probably the most substantial Marvel event that I think I've ever read, that you guys have led me into reading. This is, Drew said it, this is the bar. This is the bar, and it's set right here. So when Drew or JD or you tell me to read Thanos Rising or Thanos Quest as a part of this, you're damn right I'm going to be reading those at some point.
Thanos Quest is really good. It's different. It's him gathering the stones, but
it's the prequel, but it's really good.
It's different characters. So
I think that's where I'm going next. I think that's where my heart wants to. When I see a really good movie or read a really good book that I fall in love with, and I go towards what's next, whether it's a prequel or a sequel, that's where I'm at. So Thanos Quest is probably going to be. I almost kind of wish I would have read Thanos Quest before this, but I think I'm going to enjoy Thanos Quest that much more because
I read it after I read the Gauntlet, and I thought that it was really nice, like supplementary fill in the gaps kind of storytelling.
They were $5 a piece came out, and they were a pain in the ass to get.
Yeah, now they're like $60 a piece, so they're in good shape.
60?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Pricey for the first prints.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, you could find a digital or you can find a reprint.
We got Emilio Reyes Jr. He says the Infinity Crusade had a lot of tie-ins that didn't need to be a part of the story, but he still enjoyed it.
Agreed. I think the Infinity Crusade was much more spread out with the tie-ins that were kind of all over the place.
That's where I went, like getting ready for the movie a couple years ago when I decided to read Infinity Gauntlet for the first time. I read the whole Infinity trilogy all in a row, and I didn't really get into tie-ins or pre-reads or even the Infinity Watch. I literally went Gauntlet, War, and Crusade. And I could kind of tell the decline in overall quality. But I mean, the Infinity Gauntlet is such a strong story. It's a near impossible feat to follow up. Infinity War, I think, is a decent epilogue to the story. I think it's definitely worth.
I feel like Crusade didn't need to happen.
Crusade, I agree, did not need to happen. I appreciated the art in it, but
they
at the same
time, halfway through Crusade, you knew it was never going to end the right way.
Yeah,
it was like Starlin had all these players, and then Marvel editorials like, well, what do they do next? And he's like, oh shit, hadn't thought of that.
And that it just kind of fell off. There was a series done in the early 2000s called The End, Marvel The End.
Oh yeah, yes, that's right.
That is a really good follow up from this. If you want to know something that's post Infinity War that kind of leads in. Kind of does, because Thanos is a major part of that, and that's another Starlin. I'm pretty sure Starlin had something to do with that.
Yeah, I think usually on those the premise on those the end titles from the 2000s, they wanted to get like the iconic creators behind the characters to do those books. So like, my favorite one's Hulk the End. They got Peter David and Del Keown to do that book, and it was just a one shot, and that's what started those. So I think when they did the Marvel the End, which was like I think 6 issues, I think they got Starlin to do that, to write it. Okay, so definitely some awesome stuff.
I see a number of titles: Fantastic Four, The End, Hulk, Iron Man, Marvel, The End, 6-issue limited series.
I feel like if we read, well, kind of spoilers for our poll reveal coming up. I feel like if we read Future Perfect, we need to read Hulk the End along with that as well, because that's a total of 3 issues. So if I think it's actually involved in the hardcover. Like if you find the hardcover of Hulk Future and Perfect, I think Hulk the End is actually tacked on into that, and it's a lot of awesome stuff in there. But yeah, those the end titles. It's been a long time since I read the Marvel the End, but that's going on.
I think I got. I think we read it again. I remember buying it, thinking it was going to be. It's not Infinity Gauntlet. It's very different, but it's a lot of baddies. a lot of baddies. Oh.
Yeah, so I guess the final topic we have to cover is, we've talked about it several times tonight, is the movies. Like, so
Yeah.
the reason kind of there was a lot of attention brought back to this story, and I was the number one person who was hook, line, and sinker trying to read this and go watch the movies, was the whole Russo brothers and Disney building toward Infinity War, and then what got revealed to be Endgame later down the line. So I guess, Andy, I'll start with you because you kind of have a fresh perspective on all this, whereas these guys, I know JD, I know what his pick's probably going to be. But, how does this compare to the movie? Is it better? Is it worse? Or are you just going to acknowledge them as two different things and not really make that comparison?
This is substantially better than the movies, in my opinion. So if we rewind a little bit and look back at the movies and where things began, early 2000s with Robert Downey Jr. and the Iron Man, right? That brought a lot of people back, and it brought a lot of people in. It also brought, Robert Downey Jr. back into the spotlight, and it brought Marvel back into the spotlight. So we kind of went along on a very visual journey with those movies and how amazing those were. But during that, a lot of people weren't reading. A lot of people weren't going back. This is that same argument all day long, where when people see a movie, oh, that was a great movie. Oh, it's based on a book, and they go back and read the book. Oh, the book was way better. How many times have we all heard that all our lives? Where, oh man, this movie was really good. Oh, it's based on a book. Oh yeah, I read the book. The book was way better. This is that book. Go read it. It is way better. That's my English escapes me at the moment. But like, seriously though, the movies are great. I love to be entertained. I'd love to go sit there with a $30 bucket of popcorn and my feet up in IMAX 3D and watch a killer movie. At the end of the day, the story's delivered in words. The story's delivered on paper. It's just, you can't beat this. I shit you guys not, when I sat down and started reading the paper copy in my hand, I didn't put it down the entire time. Didn't put it down once.
Nice.
That's awesome. All right, JD, what say you? I don't know if you have too much experience watching the movies and stuff, but does this even come close at all? Or did you appreciate what they tried to do in the movie?
Yes, I appreciate the movies way beyond. I think Infinity War is the second best Marvel movie out next to Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of homages to this than following the storyline. Captain America standing alone versus Thanos, that whole scene, there's so many innuendos but it's different. I mean, you've got the whole Infinity War. They added so much. What the Russos did, what I want to give them credit to, is they took the Infinity Gauntlet story and they took the Infinity story and they took the other Infinity stories. They kind of combined them and they added bits and pieces from other books from around that era. That was kind of cool. Captain America grabbing Mjolnir in Endgame. Endgame was very much a lot of what was in here, but also, the garden, the scarecrow, the whole movement of it made sense that they homages that they did, but I don't consider it it's based on a true story, based on a comic book, but much like Watchmen wasn't a great movie it was a good movie, but nowhere near as good as the graphic novel.
Right.
Nowhere near. It's the same thing with me. It's two different things. It's even the Umbrella Academy. I'm going to tell you this now. The Umbrella Academy is great on Netflix. It is not as much. It's not the same thing as the comic book. So,
what about you, Drew?
I love the MCU. Infinity War was the hands down the greatest comic book movie ever created. The best comic book movie villain in the history of cinema is Thanos. It's a simple fact. You can throw your jokers out there all you want. Show me one that's not dead, and I'll show you one that's not that great. And on top of that, the Russo brothers and Kevin Feige have this saying. It's like, we're going to give you Civil War. Well, it wasn't Civil War, but all the moments were there. Deliver the moments.
Mm-hmm.
And they delivered the moments from the moment that Robert Downey Jr. suited up as Iron Man. They've been delivering the moments. And from the moment at the end of Avengers, which previous to Infinity War is the greatest comic book movie ever made, at the end of that, Thanos shows up, right? And you're like, oh, okay, we're going to do the gems. This story and where it goes,
I didn't think they were doing the gems.
It's the basis of the entire MCU. Like, up until this point, it was all about gathering the gems, building the gauntlet, snapping the fingers. And they did it differently, and I think very adeptly. And I think that it all works for what it is. But like, the whole deal was this book. And I really, really love this book. And I really love those movies. But at the same time, Thanos isn't even a shadow of comic book Thanos.
No.
Comic book Thanos is such a madman. We're talking about a guy, like, not in this story, but rapes and pillages his way across the universe, and then death is like, why'd you have all those bastard children? And then spends another eternity hunting down and murdering all of his offspring. Like, that guy is a psychopath.
Mad Titan.
I mean, we see a little bit of that here, but not enough. But I tell you what, they delivered the moment. So like when the Guardians attack Thanos on Nowhere and he turns them into ribbons or makes them melt into putty, splits them into blocks.
Which is a great reference.
Like,
that is a great reference that they use in this book. The exact two,
exactly,
one with the blocks and one there to do it to two of the people, but he does the exact same thing. One of the things I want to say is, at the end of Avengers 1, I didn't think they had enough characters to do Infinity Gauntlet, so I assumed they were going to do the Cosmic Cube story, which literally is a great story, which is the first Thanos story.
That's that first Thanos Avengers.
Right, first Thanos Avengers. So I was thinking, oh, they'll build
annual
that
crossover.
up, and the Tesseract is really the Cosmic Cube. But load that to the next time I find out that they're doing the Infinity Stones. I'm like, mother, how are you going to bring all these people? You're going to have a Doctor Strange? Boom, they announced every one of those movies. Once the gems came out, they announced all those different characters, and I was like, wow. I still didn't think they had enough, but they did, you know?
The DS Comics in the chat says he's disappointed they didn't feature the Thanos copter. Funny you should mention that. Right now in Aaron's Avengers, right, Moon Knight is doing this thing where he's like taking the powers and the tools of everybody so that Khonshu can fight the Phoenix Force or some bullshit. It's really good, even though it's completely convoluted. But Black Panther says, you know, is talking to Moon Knight while he's like stealing all these things. He's like, you didn't need to steal you need to steal this, you didn't need to steal that, and you didn't need to. And he's like, I did need the Thanos copter. So apparently Moon Knight stole the Thanos copter and is using it in Aaron's Avengers currently.
The weapon Thanos uses in the MCU, the weapon he uses, which he uses no weapon ever, and he uses a sword later on when he's a farmer, but uses nothing. That is the blade from the Thanos copter they put in. That's the homage they did. It's a helicopter blade and it spins around. And Starlin got a little upset about it, apparently. He said,
fuck Starlin.
Starlin hates the Thanos copter.
The Thanos copter is out of continuity. It's been brought into it's been retconned into continuity, but it was from it was from a kid's book, right?
The Cosmic Cube. It's a great story.
Wasn't it from the Electric Company book?
Yes, and the kid takes it and wishes for an ice cream cone and gets it. And Thanos goes to jail. Literally gets arrested and thrown in the
gets arrested by just pedestrian terrestrial cops.
Just patrolmen.
Just like, right.
Spider-Man.
A mounted cop in Central Park is like, hey, come here.
I think it's Spider-Man and Hellcat are the two heroes. And,
yeah.
I could just
that issue around here somewhere.
Thanos going to trial, and he brings his buddy Celestial with him, and then like he still has to remain in jail because Ben Matlock shows up, and he always wins. So that would be a great storyline, in my opinion. But my final thoughts on the movie to comic comparisons, like I think it just kind of depends what kind of Thanos you want at the end of the day. Do you want literally the Mad Titan you get in Infinity Gauntlet, the book? I think that is like an awesome version in itself. But I really respect the Russo brothers version as well, where Thanos, he was a lot more logical and level-headed than the one we get in the comic. But he's still a crazy madman, and that he thinks that like he can just go wipe out half of existence. He at least has more of a reason for it in the movies, obviously, than he does in the comic, where he decides like, I'm just going to wipe out existence to impress death. Whereas in the movies, he's like, I'm going to wipe out existence because the universe depends on it, and I want to retire on my farm, and they'll be eternally grateful, and they'll look up to Thanos and say, thank you, or something like that. But yeah, I definitely really enjoy both versions, basically. All right. So
let me just have one more moment on that. In the movie, right? It's about resources, right? He's kind of being an environmentalist, right? And in the book, it's about getting laid, right? And we all know the only good reason to be an environmentalist is to get laid. So isn't it basically the same thing?
There you go.
Shout out to John's Comics with Kids. I'm doing my best, man. Thank you. But as we do with every read here on Modern Men, we have to give it our score. So, Drew, we'll go ahead and start with you because I know you're going to give this
9.8. Ain't it great?
Andy.
Every week, you guys make me a better person, a better reader, a better collector. 9.8.
It's really a trade-off. I become a worse person.
Really? No. Oh, okay. Yeah. No, seriously.
We're just balancing the scales.
Seriously, you guys make me a more educated collector, a better person, a bigger part of this community, and you guys have welcomed me every week, and I greatly appreciate it every week. This has been a phenomenal read. This is definitely a 9.8 in my opinion.
All right. JD, what about you?
It's my second favorite arc of all time. So it's up there. I give it a 9.8.
Nice. I'm giving it a 9.6.
What?
Just so he can rate Crisis higher when we do it on week 50. That's all he's doing.
It was rushed
all he's doing.
At the very end, in my opinion. Like, come on. Like, when freaking Nebula gets the Gauntlet, they recruit Thanos. Like, I feel like it should have been at least 8 issues to kind of like build up to Thanos teaming up with Adam Warlock and the crew. Toward the very end, I felt like it was rushed. And that was a small nitpick. I gave it 1 spine tick, Drew. You know, I'll make it a 9.6 gold label for you. Signed by Jim Starlin and George Perez.
A 9.8 can have up to 2 issues. A 9.8 can have two imperfections. I mean, up to.
Oh, yeah, no, I forgot about the dog ear. But anyway.
Oh, man.
All right, so we'll go ahead and start ending this
What's
show.
the topic for tonight?
So I don't think I could do this for 2 more hours. But next week, I want to extend the open invite again. If there's any Turtle fans out there, we're going to be talking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the whole show next week. So because of you guys, the poll that won was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Volume 1 from the IDW run, the Tom Waltz era, with Kevin Eastman helping him out. Some of my all-time favorite Turtles. It's what Kevin Eastman called his definitive version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I look forward to having at least Andy and Drew get a chance to read that. But if you're a Turtle fan in the community, I welcome you to come on the show next week and talk Turtles with us. Once again, I want to talk about the cartoon, movies, action figures, Hostess pies. I can't wait. It's going to be great. But we got a little bit of business to conduct. Trying to figure out what we're going to read the week after that, because we have a poll we're going to put up right after the end of this show for week 47. So this is week 45. Week 46 is Turtles. So we got to figure out week 47. So JD, he didn't know it when he was going to be on, but it's almost like when you're a guest, I have to pick your brain before the show starts on good reads. And I think JD came up with a few awesome ones here. So on the poll will be 100 Bullets by Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Rizzo. JD, you want to kind of plug that book real quick?
Yeah, I read the first hardcover edition, the deluxe edition, and I ordered them. And I will honestly tell you that I was taken back. And there hasn't, like, as I brought up a couple of the independent ones, this one, it was a recommendation from John's Comics with Kids, and I got it, and I swear to you, it was better than advertised. It was better than I thought it was going to be. It's something unexpected. That's the best way to put it. It's unexpected.
Nice.
Yeah.
Next one, once again, this is one of your picks, JD. Scalped by Jason Aaron.
Ooh.
That is my favorite indie book ever. It was the one that really got me. I stopped reading comics after a while, and that made me come back from Vertigo. And I went for that, and it was the covers by Jock and Guerrera's artwork, but the story by Jason Aaron. Think of The Sopranos on an Indian reservation with a little bit of Breaking Bad in there.
Nice. That sounds awesome. Drew, I think this one was one of your next picks, and I absolutely love this pick as well. And I think we should almost read Hulk the end with it for sure. But Hulk, Future Imperfect.
Yeah, there was just the Maestro Marvel Tales released that you can go to your local shop and get for like $8.99. That has both parts of this with a beautiful In Hook Lee cover.
Really
and
cool.
I just read it like last week when it came out again. And you know what? I don't know who does the art in this book, but Peter David writes it. It's fantastic. Do you know who does the art in this book, Seawood?
Oh no.
Do you know who did the art in Future Imperfect?
Next up,
does anybody know who that was?
Rising. Andy, this is one of your ideas. What do you think about Thanos Rising next week, or 2 weeks from now, perhaps?
I got to get some more Thanos. I really do. After everything you guys have steered me towards, to not read this and then talk about it as a group, as an entity. If we don't do it in 2 weeks, we're going to be doing it at some point, I would hope.
Yeah, when you wild card it.
Yeehaw.
And I tell you what, I won't be mad at that. 2 Jason Aaron books on the poll this week. And I tell you what, I'm a big fan of Thanos Rising.
And then the last one will be Marvel The End. So, JD, you were talking about this one earlier as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like another mini series done in Marvel with destruction on its way with a lot of baddies. It's Jim Starlin. It's very cosmic-y, but it does a pretty good job. Brings back a few characters from the old days that are pretty good from the early Fantastic Fours. You get a little Rama Tut action actually in there in the middle. So you have some fun. Thanos Rising, my own opinion on it is it was the first time you actually thought of Thanos as, he was given the title of Deviant, but kind of made him, you realize how messed up he is, but he was messed up as a kid, and it's a great run. And I think Jason Aaron, anything he did with anything was great, but he really brought Thanos back from like just super baddie to almost gave him a background story, which was unheard before.
It's a villain origin that doesn't ruin a villain, which is a very strange thing.
There's nothing in it that makes him different later on, other than the planet Titan and is really off of Saturn in most of the comics, but that's just something different.
Well, I'll have that poll posted here shortly, but one more read I have to plug. And that usually, like I said, I think every 5 episodes of Modern Men, it's almost like a wrestling pay-per-view, if you will. We got to plug to something big and grand. And I'm telling you, for week 50, Andy, you might want to start reading like now because it's 12 issues. It's a lot of craziness.
That's Crisis?
That is Crisis.
Who did the art on that?
Here we go. Crisis on Infinite Earths, written by the awesome Marv Wolfman, and art, all 12 issues, every panel, every bit of it, drawn by the greatest artist of all time, in my opinion, at least, George Perez.
Who?
It's going to be awesome. We'll see what Drew thinks. Tune in to see him crap all over one of my favorite books of all time. It's going to be great.
9.4. I haven't read it yet.
I have it on good
authority. A really good one.
Never read it.
Can't wait. I hope
you never read it, Drew?
I have never read it. I can't wait to
really
get to
like
it.
You'll love it.
I've been telling Carson that, throw it up there because I want to read it,
Really
and
good.
I haven't, and I won't unless there's a reason to. Before we get
reread
out
it.
of here, Carson,
Yeah.
I just want to give one more hooded sweatshirt shout out to JB for sending me back this sweatshirt. The last time I was wearing this sweatshirt, folks, John's Comics with Kids was there in person. So was Chad R. So was that good guy Comics Misexplained. DS, who's in the chat, was here the last time I was wearing this shirt. It was at the Baltimore Comic-Con. I left this there. JB just finally took my shirt to California and then AOK'd me my own sweatshirt today, and I couldn't be happier.
Nice.
But yeah, I was extending some invites in the chat there.
No, you're inviting people to come to Crisis?
Crisis, man. I mean, when you think Crisis, you got
just trying to limit my time to talk shit on it.
Possible. Well, yeah, Drew, I got to make sure it's a 3-hour show. We got to set a record here. We're setting a record right now at 1 hour and 50 minutes. So, so JD, is Golden Guys coming back tomorrow? What's on the docket?
We are back tomorrow. Golden Guys is back. We have 2 topics. I don't want to. One of them is going to be, obviously, we have a new auction that's been going on, and we have some new books. We'll say cautious buying, maybe. Cautious buying. We'll go into it more tomorrow. We're gonna break it down. We have 1 or 2 guests. We're trying to limit the number of guests we have. Might have to move one back a week, but we'll see.
Awesome. That'll be great, I'm sure. Drew, where can people find you?
You can find me around. I've been around, and I'm going to be around. Probably going to be on the show on Friday, even though I wasn't last week. That's about it.
You've been putting in the work hours this weekend.
Now, you know what? Somebody around the way had a COVID situation with somebody in their family. So, and like 2 of the people in the family work where I work. So we've been short staffed because they have not been in. So I've been putting in the hours lately.
Andy, where can people find you?
You guys can find me here every week, Monday night, the one of my favorite nights of the week. And you guys can find me here on Wednesday on the Comic Core for the greatest comic book show ever. And then Thursday, we're going to talk hot indie titles. Thank you, Alec, White Whale Comics, for leading me on to Descender and reading Descender. JP Budget Collects and Alec and myself and No Good Comics read the first volume of Descender last weekend on JP Budget Collects channel. And that's another book I could not put down. I read 4
great book
volumes in 2 days. So that led me to think that I want to do a show about talking about just great, super awesome, super hot indie titles over the last decade. Stuff that people don't want to miss out, that it's great content and great stories to read. So that'll be Andy Given Thursdays, man.
Yeah, you've actually convinced me to start reading Gideon Falls. I actually read the first issue the other day, and I know you've been plugging up that book. And then John's Comics with Kids talking about how great Descender is. So plenty of great reasons to talk about further there, I'm sure. But where you can find me, if you search CWoodward19 on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, I'm on all those. Actually, I think I am going to go live tomorrow on my channel because I got some original art. I'm hoping
what time? I'm not doing anything. I might watch you.
7 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday nights. Really hoping my one piece of art ships tomorrow. Apparently, it's in the city. It did not ship today, though. So
I did get a piece of art today.
I got a piece of art to show. I got a Gabby. I got another art from her. Oh, look at! Oh, you got that? Nice. That's
I got this on Mainframe.
That's
Sweet.
right.
Yeah, this was a great deal on Mainframe, and it's actually penciled by Cynthia Martin, who did most of the Return of the Jedi in Marvel in the 83, and painted by Dave Dorman, who does most of the covers. So it's kind of a good little piece right here, you know.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Chad's got a piece of business in the chat. He said Writer's Block's going to be on Wednesday before the Greatest Chow. I think he means greatest comic book show ever. Chris Barrett says, is Andy doing a Spawn episode? No, he said Goodreads.
If you want to see Spawn, though, I didn't get done with my last plug yet. Comics of the Atom, the link is down below. I do that podcast by Mike Green. And we actually did a whole episode dedicated to Spawn, Chris. So if you haven't listened to that, go ahead and catch that on the Rewind.
Is it posted already?
I like
Spawn
Spawn.
one should have been a couple weeks ago. We're getting ready to do Ultimates Volume 1 this Wednesday. We're going to record it. So
very cool.
I think I just listened to your last Animal Man.
Nice, yeah. So Spawn should be up already, and then we're going to start our. I don't know how deep of a dive it's going to be, but we're going to dive into the Ultimate Universe and kind of talk about the origins of that. So
Nice.
that'll be great. But other than that, guys, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight for this deep dive of Infinity Gauntlet. And like I said, Turtles next week, and then week 50, Crisis on Infinite Earths. But until next time, guys, we'll see you later.
Peace.